Completed an executive session, so we are taking a few more minutes before we start the official meeting. Probably 3 or 4 more minutes, we'll get started. Alyssa? I call the meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the January 20th, 2026 business meeting of your Ashland City Council. Councillor Kaplan will offer the land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge and honor the Aboriginal people on whose ancestral homelands we work, the Ikirikutsum Band of the Shasta Nation, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their home here today. We honor the first stewards in the Rogue Valley and the lands we love and depend on. Tribes with ancestral lands in and surrounding the geography of the Ashland watershed include the original, past, present, and future indigenous inhabitants of the Shasta, Takelma, and Athabascan people. We also recognize and acknowledge the Shasta village of Quakaka, where the crow lights, that is now the Ashland City Plaza.
Thank you. Councillor Hanson will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Sherrill,
Here.
Dale,
Here.
Bloom,
Here.
Graham,
Here.
Kaplan,
Here.
Duquesne,
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Thank you. For Mayor's announcements, I want to make sure everyone remembers that we are having our annual town hall tomorrow evening, starting at 5:30 at the Mountain Avenue Theater at the high school. And so encouraging everyone to come out for that. Also wanted to thank all of our community members and our fellow organizations that hosted the celebration yesterday for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It was great to see everyone out. Particular thank you to Councillor Duquesne for her good work on that particular event for not only this year, but for many years in the process, and all of the other sponsors. I will offer a proclamation now for Martin Luther King Jr. Day 2026. Whereas we honor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who dedicated his life to the values of social justice and opportunity for all. And whereas we remember his legacy as an American hero and tireless social activist who called upon our country to ensure equal justice under the law. And whereas the civil rights movement of the 1960s has profoundly and positively impacted the course of American history and continues to shape the direction and debate of our society. And whereas Dr. King called on us to love, not hate, to seek justice, not revenge, to confront the violence of others with nonviolent resistance. And whereas Dr. King encouraged Americans to come together, regardless of age, race, or creed, to strengthen their communities, to alleviate poverty, and to value the dignity and respect inherent in all people. And whereas the Congress and the President of the United States established by law in 1986 a national holiday to commemorate the anniversary of Dr. King's birth. Now, therefore, I, Tanya Graham, Mayor of the City of Ashland, Oregon, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby acknowledge Martin Luther King Jr. Day and call upon the people of Ashland to reflect upon our individual attitudes, take action to address our unconscious biases, and establish or renew our commitments to equal justice under the law and respect for our fellow human beings. In Ashland, we are better together. Thank you. We now move on to approval of minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, the floor is open for a motion to accept the minutes. Councillor Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to accept the minutes of December 15th, 16th, and 17th, as is in the agenda packet.
Sir, roll call, please, Alyssa?
Sherrill,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Okay, and we move on to the consent agenda. Would any counselor like to remove any consent agenda item? Counselor Duquesne?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to remove item B for clarification.
Okay, and so that will move to the topic area at the end of the agenda. We'll pick that back up at the end of the agenda. We still have the first item, item A, on the consent agenda. So the floor is open for a motion to accept that item of the consent agenda. Counselor Duquesne.
I would like to move to accept item A in the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Sherrill.
Yes.
Thank you. And I just want to thank our two community members who have stepped forward, Monique Abanizio to the Public Arts Commission or Committee, and Maya Berg, who will be joining the Climate and Environmental Policy Advisory Committee. So thank you both for stepping forward to serve your community. We are now to public forum. We have 15 minutes for public forum, and this is the time in the evening when members of our community will come forward to speak to the council on issues that are not on the agenda. Tonight, we have about 19 or 20 people, I believe, who have signed up for this particular part of the evening, and we generally have about 15 minutes for it. So what I'm going to do is expand it a little bit, but everyone is only going to have a single minute to speak. And I know that that doesn't seem like very much time. So what I want to encourage everyone to do is there is something that we often take up as a practice in our council that helps us understand the feelings of the people who are in the audience. So if I expect that there are maybe one or two particular issues that people are here to speak to us about this evening. And so what we encourage you to do or allow for this to happen in our chambers is if you agree with what the person at the podium is saying, you can give us the universal sign language for applause. You like that. There is no appropriate hand signal if you disagree. Remember that we are here to create a space where we can share ideas, we can share opinions, we can do so respectfully. But if you let us know what element you agree with by the person speaking, we can understand better what the larger community is coming tonight to express to us. I also understand that a big part of the conversation tonight is likely to be around the city's relationship with Asante, around the changes to the Ashland Community Hospital. One of the things I want to make sure everyone understands here is that the city does not own those buildings. We have a very limited contractual agreement with Asante, and we do not, in fact, have the ability to compel them to maintain services. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that basic element before we start the conversation. The way that public forum works is that you will come up to this podium here. You'll see both a clock up on our side here, and then there's also a signal. There's a visual signal there for you. As soon as your time starts, it will go to green. When you have 20 seconds left, it will turn to yellow and you'll hear a little buzzer sound. Remember, your first buzzer, it doesn't mean you're done with your time, but it signals you that you're getting close to that last little bit. And then when you hit the final time, you will hear another buzzer and your light will go to red. At that point, please finish the sentence that you're on. It is important that we hear from everyone. And so making sure that you follow those instructions allow for the next person to come up and speak. We also encourage folks to line up along that backside wall in the order that I call your name so that we can move quickly to the next speaker. And finally, if you have mobility needs and you need a microphone brought to you, when I get to your name, simply raise your hand and we will have someone come bring the mic to you and you can make your testimony from your seat in the audience. And anyone who would like to speak to us this evening, I neglected to mention this during my opening comments. I think everyone here has done this, but we have sign-ups on the back wall, speaker sign-up forms, and you can bring those forward to us in this little tray here, and that allows our recorder to bring that information to me and make sure that I get those sign-up forms at the correct time. If you have come this evening to speak to us on an agenda item, please also put your speaker request form in that tray and she'll make sure that I have it at the appropriate time. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with public forum. The first person is Christopher Nader. And Christopher, I have two sign-up forms for you this evening on two different topics. And so we haven't typically had this before. I ask you to keep your time limited to I realize 1 minute's not going to quite get us all the way there. So please, please take one. Oh, is he coming in the other door? Maybe. Okay. So please. Is he coming back? This other door, maybe. Okay. So, Mr. Nader, please consolidate your comments on both of your topics to your time that you have. We have so many people signed up this evening for public forum that we have to accommodate it that way.
Mayor, just to, I don't know what I'll just throw it out there. I would prefer Denise to speak because we had this ready today. We had a problem with a guy named Clark at Or was running out, yeah. But this was scheduled for 3 minutes because we didn't know we were going to do the 1 minute thing. But I would prefer to just speak tomorrow so I can reach out to my corporate contacts in New York. And I was going to do a press release and send it out to my friends like Paul Azan, Gil Ossenhart, who prosecuted a police chief in Texas. Sir, would you like me to then set these aside for this evening? There's an SOU event in April. I'm part of that project for the student anyhow. But what's important is this here. So I don't know what you want to do, Mayor, but 1 minute in a small city like this, really, you should rethink it. We keep asking you to rethink it, you know? If there's someone else who wants to speak to that issue who hasn't signed up for public forum yet, I'm happy to take that additional. Just a point of order. She has signed up. She'd like 3 minutes. That's exactly what we need. But we could do it tomorrow if you want, because it'll give me a chance to blast out a press release to every known contact I have in the media, which is a lot. Okay. If you'd prefer to do that, it's up to you, sir. But you've run yourself out of your public service time. Of course I have. Right. Of course I have. The next folks up will be Leslie Stone, then Paul Mozina, followed by Linda Adams and Glenda Ratcliffe. Go ahead. Please tell us your name and the city in which you reside at the beginning of your testimony.
I'm Leslie Stone. I'm a physician here in town in Ashland. I have been working at Ashland Community Hospital for 25 years. Ashland's history has always been, the community hospital has always been a history of culturally sensitive care, creative and responsive to our community. The example that I would like to highlight tonight is the fact that we are able to provide exceptional niche care in birthing experiences. It is a non-medicated birth experience, specialized, it's limited regional access. You have to travel out of the area to Silverton, to Portland, to Reading, to be able to access this kind of care. People who want this birth experience travel far and wide. They also come from here locally. And when they are able to, if they miss that opportunity, they don't come to the hospital. They end up being delivering at home with an increased risk of having adverse events happen to them, which can be catastrophic. The issue that I want to propose today in 2 seconds is that we push back and that we use the two years allowed us contractually by Asante to point out to them and to us that this is a lose-lose scenario that damages our community.
Thank you.
Could be restored by community.
Paul Mozina is up next.
My name is Paul Mozina. I live in Ashland. The state of the city can be measured by the actions the council took when adopting the 2025-2027 biennial budget. On May 19th, the council amended the budget at a study session, and since the item was not on the agenda, no one could comment on the change made to the child care grant program. This violated municipal code and open meetings laws. Then on June 3rd, the deputy city administrator introduced the budget item, claiming that the council had amended the budget via motion. There was no motion, there was no vote. Mayor Graham called the motion for the budget resolution before the public hearing and had to be stopped. Per Oregon revised statute, the hearing on the budget must be on the budget as adopted by the Citizens Budget Committee. So the council violated the Oregon revised statute by amending the budget before the public hearing. And the final straw is that the council did not vote on those amendments to the budget. That violated two sections of the Ashland Charter. So I want to call your attention to that. You violated the Oregon revised statute, you violated Ashland Municipal Code, and you violated the Ashland Charter.
Thank you. Linda Adams, and then Glenda Ratcliffe, followed by Fernando Gaspasin and Debbie Matson.
Mayor and council and staff, speaking tonight is the Board Secretary of Trusted Homes, a community land trust. Thanks to the council for unanimously approving Trusted Homes project to build 6 permanently affordable homes in the Beach Creek neighborhood. We invite you and the entire community to be part of this foundation. Whether you are a potential home buyer, a neighbor concerned about displacement, or a donor who wants to see your contribution work for generations, there is a place for you at Trusted Homes. If you are interested in helping us build a constellation of permanently affordable homes in Ashland and throughout the Rogue Valley, we invite you to follow our journey at trustedhomesclt.org. That's trustedhomesclt.org, and share this vision with others. Together, we can help ensure our community remains a place where everyone truly belongs. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Glenda Ratcliffe, and I'm an RN. I've lived and worked in this city for over 35 years, and I'm keenly aware of the great loss to our community that is posed by Asante's hasty plan to eliminate the OB department and the inpatient care. This change was made public December 3rd, 2025. People in Ashland are shocked and saddened by this move. There has been a lack of transparency and concern from both Asante and our city government. It is clear by the turnout this evening that the citizens of Ashland want and deserve more. I suggest a longer public meeting. With the council.
If you'd hold on for just a moment, please give her 20 seconds back. I just need to remind people that we are in this space together. There are rules of decorum that we keep. There is no clapping, there is no cheering, there is no making noise outside of the space. Remember, if you agree with what they're saying, you can give us a hand signal, which many of you are doing, but that is the extent to the way that you can participate in this when someone is speaking. Ma'am, go ahead and pick back up. We're giving you your 20 seconds back.
Thank you. I suggest a longer public meeting with the council, mayor, city attorney, and hopefully the CEO of Asante present. The hospital changes are coming quickly, and it is time for the public to be involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Fernando Gapazin and Debbie Matson, followed by John Maurer and Denise Gerke.
Hello. I want to say that I'm a member of Healthcare for All Oregon, and I'm a 100% disabled combat veteran. We moved to Ashland. One of the reasons was the availability of healthcare. We even have our house available because I have to go to emergency a lot. I went 3 times last year or this past year. And the VA, as you know, don't have emergency care. They take care of everything else, but I don't have emergency care there. So what I'm making an appeal for is that you keep, we had an argument, my hospital open, and to do everything you can. And I'll do everything I can.
Thank you.
briefly, we citizens are asking the City Council to schedule a public meeting for us to ask about this proposed proposal, get details, and receive unambiguous answers. We'd like the city attorney to be present, and we would like Asante decision makers to be invited to attend so we can get clear information about why Asante is doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. John Maurer, Denise Gerke, followed by Lori Hoagland and Patty Dawson.
Thank you, Mayor and council members, for allowing me the 1 minute. It's not my style to read, but I'm going to have to get this done. When I came to you in August of 2024, I brought to your attention the lack of transparency that was being exhibited by Asante as it related to our hospital. I told you of the discrepancies that existed between the rhetoric and what they were actually doing. At that time, I pointed out they were on the brink of being in default of the contract that they have with you all. That's a $4 million breach of contract. I told you about that. In the meantime, the hospital is closed. People that have taken their first breath and last breath in this hospital are no longer able to do that. That's 120 years that's been going on, and this tragic loss has happened on your watch. I'm telling you what we need to know. I know you have an aggressive, talented new city attorney. I know he's watching that $4 million for us. I am proposing that he's going to successfully have that $4 million, put it into a reserve fund so that it can be used to resurrect this hospital, which will occur sometime in the next few years. The Asante flag is going down. There's going to be deep pockets that are coming into the town.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I'm speaking on the business of homelessness in Ashland and throughout Oregon. 5 years ago, my life changed forever. The first disturbing incident happened while I was pregnant and involved in a real estate transaction I didn't want to do but was forced into. Then when I gave birth to my son via C-section at Asante Hospital in Grants Pass, Oregon, which should have been a joyful beginning, became the first step in a nightmare I'm still living. Someone, a doctor or nurse, wrote suicidal in large letters on my birth report. I wasn't suicidal, but that single word set everything in motion. Within 2 years and after moving to Westland, Oregon, my son was taken from his high chair in the middle of the day. It took a year to get a custody trial in Clackamas County. That first trial was canceled when we finally went to court. The judge in front of me was sitting under a different judge's name, and that judge's name she was under retired right after my trial. All I have to say is disgusting, and how dare you raise your right hand under oath? Something wasn't right. I would continue this, but I only have a minute. I'll continue the rest of it. There is some severe issues within our healthcare industry that do involve the homeless population and trafficking children. That's why Asante is under the microscope.
Thank you. Lori Hoagland and Patty Dawson, followed by Brianna Stringfellow and Mary McHughes.
Hi, my name is Lori Hoagland. I am a resident of Ashland. I'm also a nurse practitioner and have cared for patients for over 40 years. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. In the richest country in the world, why is it that we are accepting a reduction in health services in a community where 30% of the population is over 65 years old? I served for a number of years as a quality liaison at Kaiser in California, essentially a nurse watchdog, and listened to administration emphasize the importance of treating patients with severe infections in less than an hour with antibiotics so we could reduce the rate of death from sepsis. You can't tell me that adding a geographical barrier by closing this hospital will not result in death for some patients. Imagine if were short of money and were told that our fire department was moving to Medford in the middle of summer. One unnecessary death of a community member is too many.
Thank you. And please remember to tell us your name when you get started in the city you live in.
My name is Patty Dawson, and I live in Ashland. And I've worked at Ashland Hospital for 31 years, and now I have over 500 hours of volunteer time. there. It's very important to me, this hospital, and it makes me very sad. Since Asante has taken over in 2013, we have lost an incredible home health and hospice, wound and bariatric, who took care of incredible wounds at the hospital. Our small intensive care unit has been lost. The cafeteria is even downsized, doesn't even support the people that are there now. And now we're losing Med-Surg and Ashland Birth Center, and they say there's jobs for everybody. But what I hear from the nurses is there are not jobs for them, at least jobs that they want, and they're getting paid less. They're losing their seniority, and I want the community to know this and understand. I understand our healthcare system is expensive, but what I believe more is that there has been a lack of vision that sees Ashland Community Hospital as an asset, not a liability, and there is a lack of creative thinkers.
Thank you. Brianna Stringfellow
Hello.
and Mary McHughes,
Thank
followed
you.
by, just a moment, followed by Tom Romano and Kara Cruikshank. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I'm Brianne Stringfellow. I'm a nurse at Ashland Hospital. I work in the ER, so my job isn't affected, but I feel that we are still going to be affected. Since nursing school, I was taught about the baby boomer generation getting older and sicker and how that would really affect the nursing and healthcare system, and us as nurses would become overwhelmed. I feel that happening right now in real life. It's only going to get worse. I know that having worked in a standalone ER, ambulances will not bring us patients because they will be concerned about the lack of services that we have. Therefore, they're going to go to Rogue, where they are having them watch their patients because they can't put them in rooms. So it's going to be worse. We need to push back.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, I'm Mary McHughes. I live here in Ashland, Oregon. I arrived a little over 50 years ago, and I was hired at the hospital as the respiratory therapist at the time. And about a month or two after I arrived, I was involved in a major car accident going to a hospital picnic at the Emigrant Lake. The man who ran, or the young person who ran into me, died at the scene, and I was taken to this hospital and taken very good care of. And I went into shock and needed to be transferred, but nonetheless, I needed to be taken care of very quickly. And if we have to go all the way to Medford, I don't know what's going to happen as far as these urgent situations that we have. And I'm also very.
Oh, you're still good. You have 21
okay.
seconds.
The birthing center, I think, is critically important. My daughter was also born here. I left in '85. I just returned about 2 years ago, and there are some I think there's an opportunity here, and I think we do need to push back. And I really like what Dr. John Maurer said, that let's put that money in the bank and do something.
Thank you. We have Tom Romano, followed by Kara Cruikshank, Clorinda Maripin, and Karen Potts.
My name is Tom Romano. I'm not a medical professional. I've never worked at Ashland Community Hospital. However, I had an appointment with a regular doctor one morning who said that I should go immediately to the ER. My heart was slowing down to 29 beats per minute. Fortunately, the emergency room services were there. They took care of me right away. And I was so gladdened that service was available. And what would have had to have happened if I had to go all the way to Medford in that emergency situation? I have had colonoscopies through Ashland Community Hospital. I've had to wear a Zio patch, but I am so grateful again for their services that they are immediately there. I've been in the ER at Ashland Community Hospital twice, and it's going to greatly concern me that if other people have worse situations with their heart than I do, that they would have to go all the way to Medford, to Asante, to Providence Hospital, or some other such medical service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cara Cruikshank. I live in Ashland. I just moved back after being away for 5 years, and the healthcare situation in my county up in Washington State is so bad. I was waiting 8 hours in the ER for just a simple thing that here in this hospital, I'd only waited about 5 minutes for about 10 years ago. I am shocked that this is happening in this little town. I was so excited to come back to this town And that hospital is part of it. It really is. I kind of smell a rat. Does anyone else smell a rat?
No, ma'am, keep your comments directed to the council,
Well,
please.
there's a corporate rat in this situation. I don't think it's right that you guys don't have control over your own hospital. I think the $4 million thing needs to be taken into consideration, but also some pushback so we can save what's left of this hospital. All these services have been decreasing since I've been gone, and before that. It's a tragedy. This is a special town. Everybody's aging. We need this hospital. We need it badly. We do not need corporations pushing us around like they are in the entire country. Let's push back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Clarinda Maripin, followed by Karen Potts, Kelly Marcatulli, and Brenda Gould.
My name is Clarinda Maripin, and I'm a resident of Ashland. What is the first duty of government? The first duty is the responsibility to protect. Ashland faced a choice of saving money versus the health of its people, and it chose money. In June of 2024, park staff recommended amending the herbicide IPM, allowing 3 chemicals to be sprayed: trifluorolin, diclofenac, and glyphosate. These are going to also impact all you hospital folks too. They've been banned in such places as the EU and UK. Diclofenac and glyphosate have also been banned in China, Brazil, Thailand, Vietnam, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and a list of 40 other countries. And closer to home, they've been banned in Washington State and the cities of Bend, Eugene, Talent, and Phoenix. The Ninth Circuit Court is looking at banning glyphosate along with this decision this upcoming year. You know who else used to ban these chemicals? The city of Ashland. This is a bright line. Ashland's going to be facing more and more of these dilemmas as the deficit looms closer and the national economy gets worse.
Thank you.
However, this is an easy one.
Thank you.
My name is Karen Potts. I live in Ashland.
Ma'am, if you can lift that microphone up a little bit so we can hear you. Yeah, go ahead and pull it up. There you go.
Karen.
Go ahead and start again.
Karen Potts. I live in Ashland. And I'm here about the proposed bill that the Federal Communications Commission has 25-276, Build America, Eliminating Barriers to Wireless Deployment. If the FCC have their way, they'll have complete control over all where cell towers go, where they'll have 5G towers 300 to 700 feet everywhere next to your home, on school campuses and national parks, and out in the farm rural areas as well. We will lose all ability to control where they go locally. There's no basis for aesthetics or health concerns or fire. In 1996, the companies got freedom from health, and now they're wanting freedom to just do whatever they want. And regardless of the fact that 4 years ago, they were given court order to revamp and reevaluate their guidelines to make sure that their guidelines were safe. We have tons more radiation now than we did. Am I done?
Thank you. Kelly Marcatulli, followed by Brenda Gould.
Kelly Marcatulli, Ashland. So buzzwords I keep hearing from all these beautiful speakers: push back, engage, do everything you can. There's a lack of transparency. We need less rhetoric and more action. This is on your watch that these things are happening. We have a lack of creative thinking. And Martin Luther King Jr., he said, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. So what Karen was just talking about is this FCC issue, is that they're wanting to just strip away any local control. And so I have 2 asks. I've sent this council information on this issue, and no one has returned any of my emails, and I find that as a huge insult. And I would like to know, maybe there's a law that says you can't respond to me, but I want a study session so people know that AFN, Ashland Fiber Network, which the taxpayers paid for, will stop telecom from putting these towers everywhere. People don't need to buy AT&T and Verizon internet. They can use AFN, and we do not need to get more towers. And thank you so much, Colleen Roberts, and thank you to Senator Golden for being curious and acting on this issue.
Thank you.
Brenda Gould, Ashland.
You can pull that microphone down if you'd like. Go ahead and start her time again. Yeah, pull it down so you can, there it is.
Brenda Gould, Ashland. While our city claims to be a place where people can live well car-free, That claim will land in the dustbin if our hospital closes its doors and essential health care becomes inaccessible, especially for elders and people with disabilities. Healthcare access is a human right. Ask Martin Luther King. Shuttering our community hospital will transform our largest buildings into white elephants. What a gem of a nonprofit resource Asante and our city councilors are planning to surrender. Real estate developers might be waiting in the wings to tear it down. What a loss of medical professionals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who came out this evening to speak with us. I know that can be frustrating to not have as much time as you would like to use. These are all of the people who have signed up to speak. Mr. Brain, you need to. Do you have a form for him?
Of course I did. I put it up there.
It's just come in? Okay, go ahead. You'll have 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you. Ashland Hospital is very personal to me. I got to go way back. I wrecked my bike in 5th grade, 1962, crashed into a barn instead of going onto Siskiyou Boulevard. You'll sell a bike, if you lose the chain, you lose brakes. Really, I did. And the hospital is where I went. I became a firefighter EMT, and in 1972, we went to the Ashland Hospital and worked with the nurses, and they taught us how to start IVs. Firefighters took over being medics, and we did that. And that was so important to do that work. Those nurses came to the fire department to learn CPR. We worked together. This is in my heart. This hospital is who we are. We have it in our charter going way back. Save our hospital. Thank you very much. Big mistake.
Thank you.
Big mistake, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all. We move now on to, I have called everyone who has signed up for public forum. So if you have not put your sheet in, there's no time now. We're moving on to the next item. No, ma'am. We are moving on now to the first public hearing. Public hearing and first reading of Ordinance 3282, creating Section 2.55 of the Ashland Municipal Code, disposal of real property. As you all, whoever is getting up to leave now, if you can please do so quietly so that we can continue on with the business of this council. Sabrina?
Thank you. So tonight we're going to discuss an ordinance that will help us legally comply with any divestment of real property. As you know, we've been having...
Hold on. Sir, in the back. Sir, there's no more talking in this space. If you would like to have a conversation, you need to take it out to the foyer.
We're all leaving right now.
Okay, well, please move it along if you can quietly, because we have a lot on our agenda this evening we're trying to move through. Okay, Sabrina?
Thank you. So as you know, we've been discussing our facilities and properties lately. And so tonight we're going to have Carmel Zaran walk us through a proposed ordinance that will help us have legal compliance when we divest of our properties. So with that, I will hand it over to Carmel. Thanks, Carmel.
All right. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you to the mayor and council to kind of start to continue where the city manager was talking. Legal's been following a lot of the discussions and goals of the council. And if the council does wish to divest of real property, one flag that we had for you all is to really go through the ordinance, or to go through the statutes and make sure that the city is going about that the right way. When I was going through this ordinances, the statutes, they, for kind of high level perspective, they occur in two sections. Section 271, and Section ORS 221. For some perspective, I'm just going to keep on talking, but if you would like me to pause, let me know.
The door is closing now, so I think it's going to quiet down.
Okay.
Go ahead.
For one thing to keep in mind in the kind of background is the difference between 271 and 221. 271 really deals with exchanges, and it has more of the perspective that 271, in my opinion, is really geared more for states, counties, and obviously it can include cities. And so the way that I structured the ordinance is that the first section really is tailored to 221, which is the part that is most applicable to cities. And then if the city were in a position where we were exchanging or had some very particular dedications related to nonprofits, then we can follow some of the guidance in that later section. So the goals for us were kind of threefold. One, to make sure that the city was abiding by legal requirements. Two, for kind of administrative efficiency, that as we discuss the disposition of real property, that instead of every time we have a property that we want to dispose of, we can go to the ordinance that really cuts to the chase for the most applicable sections in the ORS. And then three is to promote transparency. And so in this vein, the legal department kind of put together two versions for the council. I suspect most of the area that the city will be in the sale of real property. And so looking at section 255020, the section that says sale of real property, we kind of spelled out two different versions. One's a legal requirement version, that it's our recommendation that the council pass. If the council wanted a little bit more of a policy-heavy version that spelled out the process to go about the sale of real property, that is kind of in our process version. And the process version, we spell out a variety of ways that the council can direct staff to sell real property, those being direct listing or public auction, a sealed bid process, a bid award. If the council wishes to go just the route of let's just get as much value as we can for this. If the council, again, for the process version, if the council wanted to consider market factors, if the council wanted to consider factors below market value, yes, there's a lot of value we can get for this property, but it's not, let's get as much money as we can and put it into the general fund or, to maybe serve the city in other ways. What would be factors the council could consider? And so that's kind of the two big differences between the ordinances. The rest is really quite specifically pulled out from statute. And so with that, I don't know if our city attorney wants to add anything else, but I'm happy to take some questions. Okay.
Questions? Councilor Sherrill?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. When I was looking through this, not having a legal degree and understanding that a lot of this is going to default to statute, I did like that the alternative procedure talks about being it's the only option that talks about efficiency.
Oh,
And can you maybe speak to that? I know in that process of the alternative procedure, we'd have to kind of write our own language. I guess my direct question is, how do we be efficient and come up with some kind of hybrid model where we can use some more common avenues to dispo property, but also like make sure that we remain that it remains as efficient as possible?
yeah. That's a great question, and I actually meant to talk about that a little bit in my oral presentation, so thank you for highlighting. The statute for alternative procedure for city-owned real property is actually quite broad. And so this section mimics exactly what is out of the ORS. The key language there was class of property under single program. And so one way I saw other cities do this is that they would list in a resolution all of the properties that would fit under a class of properties. So one conversation or one way that I could see that happening for the city would be like, it's my understanding that from like hearing from Public Works and management that there are a number of properties that have like odd, who knows how the city got these properties over the years. But for example, there are a number of properties that are like adjacent, undevelopable, like in between, odd lot sizes. You can't develop in between other properties, and the city has to still maintain it. They don't really create a value. It's not for public use. You can't use it really for anything. And so like that would be an example that I think would be a great way to use the alternative procedure, because you could list it like you could list the property number, like kind of describe how they're similar, and then the city can dispose of those class of properties kind of through the alternative procedure. And then from there we could, like in the resolution, I think spell out a little bit more how the city wants to go about that. You know, like just a posting, maybe we can mimic some of the sale part. Since the ordinance, since the statute was pretty broad for that, and it felt like it was broad kind of on purpose to allow cities the flexibility to manage its own properties, how it felt like the language was necessary and convenient. I didn't really want to limit the council or management for that. So my suggestion for like alternative sale would be to put it on a resolution, propose resolution, list all the proposed properties, and then go about a sale in that way. And like another, for context, I looked at the city of Portland, because they have a lot of properties, and they have like a whole web page that's dedicated to describing each property that they're trying to dispose of. For them, I mean, it's a bigger city, obviously, and then just the nature of the program and how they listed their properties, I imagine they had at least one or multiple staff people. But nonetheless, it was helpful to see. Sorry, that was a mouthful.
Councilor Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Carmel. When I was reading over this, it kind of got lost on me whether or not, if we were to, as a city, looking at some of our surplus property or some of our property, we wanted to turn it over to a land trust for land banking, this new ordinance and new process wouldn't prohibit such an activity. But how does it change it? Does it make it easier? Does it make it harder?
For that one, I just directly referred to the ORS on it. So there's a ORS in Chapter 271 that directly speaks to open space parks. They had some other similar language. And in fact, even going off of memory, that ORS had the requirement for that was that there is a restriction. Didn't have a time restriction, and so for the 271, the transfer parts, usually when there was a specific restriction, I just referred to the ORS for that, just to make sure that the city was very clear and abiding by those rules. So the short of the answer is that yes, we definitely can, and I would refer to ORS 271-330.
Okay, and just to clarify, that's helpful, but when I hear you say with regards to parkland and open spaces, I just want to clarify, my intention is really to just capture whether or not this process is going to change either easier or harder or neutral in terms of our goals for affordable housing and using our surplus land potentially for opportunities as a land bank and land trust towards those end goals.
Yeah, that's a great question as well. And also, 221 had a section specifically for affordable housing, and so
221, great.
Yeah. So, and that was one where I just had a broad reference to the affordable housing sections. So, in neither version does this ordinance restrict the council's or the city's ability to have affordable housing. In no way do either versions restrict the city or the council's ability for open spaces. They just refer to they just cross-reference the sections in the ORS.
With the process.
Yeah, and again,
Okay.
part of my goal in it was was just to and even for example, there is a section that has a railroad reference and a cemetery reference, and when you go through, they're very lengthy, and so I kind of have a cross-reference. If it applies, look at that, but here's kind of your meat and potatoes.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Carmel, for getting into this. Quick question I have for you help me understand kind of the intent. It's in the ordinance document that's notated the process version, and it's in section 2.55.030, and actually I think probably should be 035 or something, because I think there's two of the O through O, so we'll typo. It's the second one under the sale of real property.
Okay.
And it is in section 2, which is avenues to sell real property.
Mm-hmm.
And it's down on the page 3 here. It says B, below fair market value consideration. So I obviously get the below fair market, what we're trying to do here. And then the next sentence says, if the council wishes to sell property outside of fair market value. So I'm wondering if that means either way, or you're just referring to below. But specifically, item 1 under there, the property is adjacent to or otherwise enhances or detracts from the value of other property the city owns. And I just don't understand, that seemed awfully, I guess we'll call it generic, and that's fine if that's the intent, but could you give me an example of what we were trying to do relative to that clause? I just want to dig in a little bit, because if we're looking to potentially look at something below fair market value consideration, I just want to make sure that we are clearly aligned on what we would otherwise be considering if that were the case.
Yeah. God, I've just been saying that's a great question a lot, but that's also a great question. And honestly, I mean, I think I think looking at that section is a good spot for council to have feedback on. What I was trying to capture is actually kind of what I was talking to Councilor Sherrill earlier about those odd properties that would help or detract the value of other cities or from property of other cities. I mean, another thing to consider for that is, we could easily, I think the goal of that also could be handled in the alternative sale part of it. So we could simply take that section out.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Kaplan? Sorry, I thought you'd raised your hand again, but you hadn't. I have a question for you. In that same section that Councillor Dale was referencing, I see under 3 where it says whether the transfer of property being transferred by the city to a private property will result in a benefit to the city or community. And then it has an including section, and that including section seems to me to limit the scope with which this council might understand community benefit. So is there a reason why the council would not want to simply strike A through E to allow the council to have a wide scope underneath that particular section to consider what benefits to the community might be?
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly keep it broad for sure. I think a potential benefit is that it's sort of a list of let me go back to the ordinance languages. So the three, if I might backtrack for a minute, the three phrasing throughout the statute is a city can sell property if it's necessary or convenient, pretty broad. In the public interest can be pretty broad, depending, and then no longer needed for public use. And so you're absolutely correct. A through E, you don't need. If the council kind of wish to have some guidance for itself or future councils as things you can hang your hat on for what those three things could be: necessary, convenient, in the public interest, not needed for public use. You could kind of look to A through E as guidance.
I think, Mayor, if I could just one of the things we discussed a lot is because the city has never had a process before, and there are a number of properties being discussed for sale for various reasons, and we were just talking about consistency and, like Carmel said, transparency, and so that, this council treats property, the sale of real property, with the same, within the same parameters as the next council and the next council. So Ashland is consistent in how they, apply this, I guess, is one of the things we had talked about.
Yeah. So in a way, it's kind of, I think it can be thought of as like a self-preservation, not in the sense that that there would be any good, poor intentions, but just sometimes having guidance can also steer decision making in a transparent way.
Councilor Kaplan?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I want to step back a little bit and just make sure I'm on the same page on what we're actually trying to do here. I understand. I mean, the city has sold property in the past without having an ordinance, specifically drafted ordinance to regulate that. It's done under Oregon revised statutes, state law, and I appreciate the intention here is to make it simpler by pulling from those different pieces so that we're clear. We've got our own drafting of the process of the rules around which we would sell property, so that you don't have to be looking around at all these different state statutes. And it's clearer for the public, and it's clearer for all of us. We can see this is how we do it. Within that, you've got two options. You've got one that you're calling the legal and one that you're calling the process. The legal one is the bare minimum. We can go ahead and feel good about approving that. It gives us the guidance. It doesn't take any options off the table that are spelled out in the process. Is that right? The process, you listed in the process version a number of different considerations for selling it at, and three different processes for fair market valuation. We not having listed those doesn't mean that we can't do those if we have the legal version rather than the process version. So I guess that's one question. I assume that was the case. And I guess along with the mayor's question, having listed them there, does that therefore also limit us to those considerations? Can we then not, I don't know, these are three seemingly good processes for fair market value valuation. But maybe in the future we may want to do something else. So I want to make sure that we have the flexibility to be able to do something else if necessary. And then also under the below fair market value considerations, not having something listed under A, B, C, D, or E, a future council may decide that there's something that is in the public interest, and we could still do that. Or is that going to limit our decision making?
So, yes, let me just take a few steps back, and then as I go along, let me know if I've answered your question. Yes, for the process version, that's correct, that you don't need to, this is all recommendation, mainly in that selling a property section. I will note that I did, even for the legal version, I did list a below market value consideration. That is not in statute, but nonetheless, I still thought even then, it was still helpful to put in there, kind of for the point that Johan and I were sort of emphasizing. And then to your question about flexibility, let me take a look. And if I may repeat back your question, the point you were getting at was basically what the question was, is a council limited? Say there's some process out there that maybe collectively I didn't think of or staff didn't think of. Are we limiting you if there's a better way out there? Let me just double check my language. Okay, let's see. It says, if the city council considers it necessary, convenient, out of statute, to sell real property under this section, the city council shall sell real property under either of the two processes below. And so it's kind of like the way it's structured is you are either considering it to get as much money as possible for it, or you have to do it for a public interest reason. And then under that, for looking at the getting as much money as you can out of it, and then it lists the direct listing, public auction, sealed bid process, bid award. So I could add a clause that would make it a little bit more flexible, but.
Well, and to follow up, because I see that same listing in both of the ordinances, and it seems to have that same restrictive element in both versions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I would be looking to have more flexibility.
Yeah, I can certainly make it. I mean, if the council liked the process version, I could make it may consider language.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem to me that that ending it at where it says, in whichever version is selected, ending that at C, where it says whether the transfer of property being transferred by the city to a private party will result in a benefit to the city or community, and just leaving it at that for the council to determine the level of that benefit. Councilor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. This is obviously somewhat difficult doing on Zoom, but so I'll just kind of get to the point here. I appreciate all the work on this. I guess I would say this, I'm saying this now instead of what I might say if a motion were made. Obviously, it depends on what council chooses to do. I feel, just what I've heard, what I've listened to, that despite the initial work, I feel like I probably need to take another crack at this, possibly. I think it's too much that would need to be done between a first and second. So I guess as a question, Carmel, are you, and maybe for Johan as you as well, do you feel that this, now that you've had the questions from council, and I'm sure there's more to come, do you feel like this is something that you may want to revisit and bring back for a first reading, or are you feeling pretty confident that you could make the minor tweaks and move forward with it?
I think what I'm hearing so far is that council may want some more flexibility, and that is something I feel confident from making in between first and second read. Yeah.
I guess I would add to that, though, going back to, it depends on which direction the council wants to go. Because if you're going to go with the strictly legal,
right,
version, then we wouldn't really recommend any changes, and you could just go with that, and it would allow for more flexibility. It would allow for the most flexibility. It would not create that same level of, I don't know if transparency is quite the right word, but just explanation to the public as how the city handles it as a matter of policy. This is the process by which, these are the factors that the city will consider, kind of expanding on that portion. So it depends on which way you're interested in going. If you're interested in going down the route of a policy focused, we had a lot of back and forth. Carl Mel had to rein me in quite a bit because I went overboard on policy in the beginning, or it's like, procedure. But if you're interested in that, in crafting that, I'd say, we can do that. It would be helpful to have, communication with us as to specific things. I mean, I think we've got a lot today, but if you're on the legal side, I don't think we need to do a lot of work.
So the legal version does still have the same language that I was referencing back, that specific set of elements that could be considered in a less than fair market rate cost structure. So if the council decides to go with that version, I would still like us to consider eliminating that short list that's in both of those places. Yeah. So I think it depends. We certainly are in a first reading of an ordinance process at the moment. So we could carry on with the hearing and that sort of element of it. But if this council wants to have a little bit more time, wants to send in specific requests for changes, then it would seem that maybe that would be the appropriate next step instead of continuing down the formal hearing process. Councilor Duquesne.
If I'm understanding the direction we're going in, Mayor, I am, having read ORS 221 and 227, I feel that what was mentioned earlier is that we've sold property before under these ordinances. I am very comfortable continuing with what we have. I appreciate the work that you've put into it, both of you. However, ORS 221 and 227, it's broad, it's fluid, life is ever changing. I'm comfortable with keeping it the way it is. I don't see the necessity.
So maybe, Carmel, can you clarify for me, because Councilor Duquesne's question has made me have a question for myself. It's my understanding that right now we don't have an ordinance that directs how we sell public property. Is that correct? Right now we're simply putting processes in place that comply with state law. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have a personal property disposal ordinance, but we do not have a real property disposal ordinance. Yeah.
And so having a follow-up, having an ordinance in place, to Councilor Duquesne's point of we're already following the law, but this would allow the council and the community maybe to have a better understanding of the process that we undergo as a council and kind of where the sideboards are on that, rather than having to chase down state law. Is that what we're thinking is the part of the rationale for this?
Yes. Yeah, I think I guess to reiterate, I think one point of nervousness, honestly, I had before I went through the ordinances was frankly how broad it is. And nowhere does it define necessary, convenient, public interest, not used for public use. And so, and it's also, I think the other thought was that if the city is really going to approach, like if we're going to really look at our properties and if we are really going to go about a process, excuse me, of divesting in real property, that it would kind of be efficient kind of all across the board. So that was really the impetus. I think if the city, if there wasn't so much like the study session and even there was a December council meeting where we talked about Imperatrice and Clay Street. If there wasn't so much discussion around real property, I don't think we'd have this impetus, but because we're here on a larger policy policy talk, that's kind of where legal is like, well, let's give a little more concrete guidance. That was kind of our thinking.
And Mayor, if I could just add to that a little bit too. And what Carmel was talking about earlier with the resolutions was something that staff has brought to our office before. I know I've talked with Public Works about what we'll call these substandard undevelopable properties, which are essentially locked by other private properties. And that would allow council to develop a resolution, put all these properties, and I can't remember, I know Scott emailed me the number and I was like, oh, we'll use that when we talk about this, but it was north of 20 properties that the city owns that are, a handful of feet that are locked by private residences that would allow a process to be in place, to just sell it quickly and efficiently and not have, these big meetings and delay, and that sort of thing. So that was another consideration that had come to us.
Councilor Sherrill?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Carmel. I would have emailed these if they wouldn't have come up during conversation. Just using some examples that we currently have, like you mentioned the Imperatrice property and the Clay Street property. If we do decide to go the process route and not legal and just say, hey, let's use the sideboards of state law and march on as we're doing, does that delay the current property that we're looking to divest in right now? Is there a delay in that? So that's one of my questions.
No, I mean, I think it would almost make it, but now it's my personal opinion. I think it would make it a little bit faster since everyone's just like, okay, we all know what path we're on.
No, but I guess my question is, if we say, hey, come back, sharpen your pencil, bring us these other options and remove these lines, and it pushes it out another few months, are we held up on divesting in property until that's done since we've started the process?
No, I mean, we still have to do a public hearing. We have to do the stuff that's required by law.
Okay.
We can schedule those whenever. However, our discussion was, hey, with all these things happening at the same time, do we want to have a clear process set out in our code?
Got it. Now is the time to do it. And then the second question I had, if I may, Mayor?
Yes.
Is the legal process, I'm assuming it's within state regulation, but the process version talks about, again, outside of the alternative procedures, doing more creative divestment in property. Maybe we lease back. Maybe we do a triple net lease or a lease to own, or maybe we trade with, like we were talking about in our example with Imperatrice. Does the legal route, if we were to just say, hey, let's move to pass this first reading of the legal route, does that incorporate those creative ideas that aren't tied to sale? Because most everything that I was looking at in the legal process had to do with sale of real property.
Yeah, lease to own by statute is in the sale section.
Okay, and trading, we can get creative within the council's discretion. I just would hate to see us go down the legal road that you were saying maybe is too broad, and tie our hands from doing creative things, or future councils doing creative things as things change.
So I will, so like Carmel said, like lease to own is included in this. Transfers or option, swaps is partially included, but also covered in other areas. So I don't think it limits anyone. And also the council will have an ability to, I can't remember if we put this in the final process one, but to essentially do a resolution specifying a specific property as unique, and then going from, like, here's why, but it's all done in the public eye, right? So at that point, this is why we're doing it. This specific property is subject to these conditions. This is what we want. I think a practical effect is just putting restrictions on it when you do the sale. So when you have the public hearing, if there's this goal in mind, we want to at least 20 years of conservation agreed to, or we want it to be developed only for affordable housing. That will lower the return that you realize from it, but the council will have control over, that portion of the sale, I guess.
Thank you. That answered. Thanks.
Okay. Councilor Kaplan?
Yeah, thanks. So again, I think I think what I'm hearing is that with the legal version of this, it has a lot of advantages. I share Councilor Duquesne's observation that, we don't absolutely need it 100%. We could do it. But I think there are some nice features of it that makes it simple to follow. And it doesn't constrain us from doing some of the things that are spelled out in the process version, nor does it run the risk of us being straitjacketed with some of the things in the process version. So I guess I'm not really seeing an advantage from my perspective of going for the process version over the legal version. It seems like we get some of the advantages and we don't have any of the disadvantages.
Counselor, do you have a question?
I want to confirm that that's the case. Is that the case, that we wouldn't be constrained to follow some of the nice ideas in the process session if we just go for the legal session version?
Yeah, and another option the council can take is if, like when it comes to sealed, like the things listed in the process version of like a sealed bid, a bid.
So we could just do that.
You could just do it, and
Right.
and we can also kind of spell out in policy is another route.
So I think what you're answering is that if the council chooses to approve the legal version, that in any individual sale, we could use any one of those items there's processes that are spelled out in the process without having to spell it out ahead of time. We could also, it's both talks about the alternative version, and it also gives the opportunity of trades and lease to own that Councilor Sherrill was talking about.
And in the legal version, I did add a line of if the council gave direction for how they were going to have a sale, that the city, basically the city must follow through on that process. So if in the sale, say we get to a property the city wants to divest of, and it's a bid package, and we list out a process for that, we got to commit to that.
And so another follow-up to that, to Councillor Kaplan's question is, we've had this conversation in the past about other ordinances where we ask the question of what is appropriate to be in the ordinance and what might be a resolution. And I'm wondering if the detailed elements of this might be put into a resolution, so we would have guidance when we come up to a sale process, but it wouldn't be as as much of a big deal to change it as it would be if it was locked into the ordinance. Is that an option for us as well?
Yeah, I think the strong recommendation I have is really, I guess you don't even need to pass it. That's probably not our recommendation, is you pass the minimum for efficiency, for clarity across not just legal, but like across the board for like community, for future councils. But yes, you don't, the rest, it's not a requirement. And that's why our department wanted to be transparent of what was a requirement, kind of what wasn't.
Yeah, great. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Alyssa, has anyone signed up to speak to us this evening on this topic?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I close the public hearing. What I'd like to do now is, we have a couple of questions in front of us. The first is, do we feel like we're ready to pass any kind of a version of this on first reading tonight? Or would we like to point staff in the direction of one of these, either the process version or the legal version, and have them come back to us with a single version for first reading? So that would be the first question is, where are we at in terms of that? So if you could answer both of these things as we go around the horn, that first question, and then which of those items, which of those are you looking at, or would you prefer to simply not have any ordinance at all? And the two questions are, do we want to move forward in some fashion on, well, actually, let's just answer the second question. Would you like one of those, which of those three options are you interested in? No action, legal version, process version. Let's start with that. Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate the question. So I guess I would just say at this point, I certainly agree that we have to have our ordinance on the books, and I appreciate the intent of what's going on here. But in summary, no, I am not comfortable with it at this time. I do agree with what Councilor Kaplan was saying, that and with the discussion relative to the legal process is what interests me more, the legal version, excuse me, not the process. And I would add that if it so chooses to be tabled and come back in that form, it would, I would hope that there would be an accompanying resolution so that we can see the how. I think, but no, I'm not ready at this time.
Okay. We can start on either side. Councillor Bloom?
Yeah, I think that that's actually the appropriate process as well. Is let's kind of fine tune this legal version and then just do a resolution and process. That seems to be the most appropriate.
Councillor Sherrill?
I like the idea of just the first reading of the legal version. I like that it's broad and it gives us a lot of working room. I think that the more government we put on government, the harder it is to get the thing done at the end of the machine. With the idea that we can send some emails and tidy it up between now and the second reading.
Okay. Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I like the idea of the legal version and a resolution to help with the process. I'm not stuck on that, but I thought it was a good idea. So I think it should go back to the workshop and come back.
Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. I am not opposed to the legal version. However, once again, we have been selling property, and ORS 221 and 227 have been working. It's broad. I'm fine with that. We'll see what the body would like to do. However, I'm completely fine with what we have been doing.
Okay. Councillor Kaplan?
Yeah, I'm also comfortable with the legal version, and with an added resolution to help clarify some of that. And I think I like the suggestion of trying to approve that tonight and approve the resolution along with second reading in a few weeks. And this way we kind of move on.
Okay. Councillor Bloom, I didn't hear in your answer if you're looking at tonight or if you would like to have this
No,
come
I
back.
think in the future. I'm not comfortable voting on a first reading that's just going to get cut up. I think we've done that a lot, and I feel like it just becomes problematic, and we have these 3-hour meetings where we cherry pick things, and let's just start getting a little bit cleaner, would be my preference.
And Councillor Duquesne, did you have a preference in terms of moving forward on first reading tonight or waiting?
No, I'm not in favor of first reading tonight because I would like to have it very clear, both sides of it, process and legal. So no, I don't want to do it tonight.
Councillor Kaplan?
Yeah, I guess I'm hearing that there's not a lot of appetite to approve a first reading of the legal version tonight. I haven't heard any real cutting up of it, other than one section, just one eliminating, a subclause. But I'm happy. I'm perfectly happy for it to come back again on a first reading and finish the work. But I would like to give direction that that staff bring only the legal version and not the process version at this point, and use the process version to help fill out the resolution.
That's what I'm hearing, is that there is strong support for starting with the legal version and including the process elements that staff has developed in a resolution that would come forward at the same time, that there's not a strong interest tonight in moving forward on the first reading of the legal version, but that's the direction that the council wants to go in. Johan, in terms of the process that we're in right now, because this is an official first reading, what would it look like? What do we need to do process-wise in order to hold it over?
I think you could no, you wouldn't table it. So I think you would not do a first reading.
Just simply not act on it.
Yeah, not act on it.
And to give staff that direction. Mm-hmm. The other element that I wanted to follow up on is just this question of, do we want to maintain the definition in the legal version in section 3, the valuation factors, do we want to keep 1 through 5 under C, which is the more specific elements that would determine the benefit to the city or community, or do we want to remove those specifics? Yes.
And Mayor, if I might, just to emphasize for the council, this is the only section in the legal version, not in statute. So just to focus where you can put your effort.
So it would be allowable for the council to take that out. Yeah, okay. Are there thoughts about that set of 5? And do we want to keep it in? Councillor Kaplan?
I would say we remain less restrictive.
So take it out? Councillor Kaplan?
I have the same reaction. I mean, I don't mind listing things as long as it's clear that it's not exclusive, if it's exemplary, but I think it's just easier to take it out.
I'm seeing a head nod. Councillor Duquesne?
Yes, and having that out of it, because we don't need our hands tied. And when I saw ORS 221 and 227, I didn't see hands tied. This, I'm not going to say what I was thinking, but so I think that it should definitely be more fluid.
Okay.
So I might consider that.
Councillor Sherrill?
Mayor, may I ask the city attorney a question, or our team? We're not opening ourselves up to any liability by removing. That's not like removing all guardrails. Are you comfortable with removing that? I mean, we're making legal decisions in front of legal. We should include you. Is that okay?
I think part of what we had discussed is this council's desire for transparency and consistency, and our concern, the way it arose, is discussions of what to do with certain properties and reasons behind that without having stated goals. So section 5, where it says supporting other adopted city priorities, where you can make it a clear explanation. If a member of the public attempts to buy a piece of property and it doesn't fit with a supported goal, you can turn to this and say, well, that didn't support, the city's goal or whatever. You could have an explanation at the ready in code that was made known. We were worried, I guess, of the appearance of treating property sales differently and getting different results, and the public being upset that they didn't know why that had occurred. So we were trying to, I guess, promote that goal. And I know we have sold properties, I guess, in the past, but as we're getting into a situation where we might be selling more, we wanted to make it very clear so that people weren't concerned and they understood these are the things that council will look at. I think that can be resolved, like you say, in a resolution. And we talked about a resolution a number of times, but it seemed like a lot to.
Go ahead, follow up.
Okay, yeah, I hear you, and thank you for answering that. That's why I ask, and I would just still hope that we would have the boundaries of state goals as well. Hey, it has to do with needed housing. We're going to rezone it per state planning goal 10 or whatever. We could still use, the question is, could we still use the state goals to show kind of a clear and objective standard of why we're doing what we're doing as a body?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would continue to remain less restrictive. Thank you for answering.
And a follow-up to that, Johan, the section you just referenced, section 5, is that in the legal version or is that in the process version?
So the below market considerations are in both.
Are in both, okay.
Yeah. Just because, again, that was a point of nervousness for us, that if the city's selling land not for the highest value, let's find ways to articulate it's necessary or convenient in the public interest, not for public use.
Okay. Councillor Duquesne, did you have a question?
No.
Okay.
You might ask and answer.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with what the council's saying here. I guess my question, just quickly on that, I see it in the legal version, is, Carmel, Johan, why wouldn't we just say including but not limited to? I mean, the sentence before that will result, it says, will result in a benefit to the city or community. So clearly that is intent of why we would be doing something, would be for the benefit of the city or community. So why would we not just say including but not limited to? Because of course, any sale or transfer of real property or disposition is going to come before this body, and we will be talking about it in public, and we would be able to talk about exactly why we would be entertaining the process.
So we're back to a question. And what I've heard here is that there is a strong desire to maintain flexibility. We have two ways of doing that on the table. One of them is to take off that list of 5. The other is to simply identify, as Councillor Dale mentioned, including but not limited to, which would also create that flexibility, but would also give people a framework for thinking about the kinds of things that would generate the that kind of exception to fair market value. So thoughts about which of those two things? This will be the last piece of the direction back to staff. Carmel?
And if I may, just one more. I think the last bullet, supporting other adopted city policies, is quite broad. So that could also help discussion. Thanks.
Okay, so do folks understand, councilors understand the question? Who would like to go first? Councilor Kaplan.
I like Councilor Dale's suggestion of including but not limited to.
Okay. Councilor Hanson, yes. Councilor Bloom, yes. Sherrill, yes. Councilor Dale is yes, and Councilor Duquesne is also a yes. Okay, so that is our direction back to staff.
So just to clarify, we're adding those additional words to that section and then bringing back a process resolution to coincide with the first reading at the next meeting. Yes?
Yes, so we would like you to come back with the legal version, with the one change being under 3C, whether the transfer of property being transferred by the city to a private party will result in a benefit to the city or community, including but not limited to, and then the list. And then that would be accompanied by a resolution that includes the process elements that are included in the process version of the ordinance this evening.
And direction is understood. We have some time now, so what I would, if I can make a request, is I will send kind of some process proposals out to council. If you could respond individually, and we can kind of put that together. So that way we're not coming here like, trying to cut up on the spot, but we could get a really good idea if there's stuff that we send you, you're like, absolutely not, or like, hey, why not include something like this? And we'll include some examples and kind of, that sort of thing. But it would be incumbent upon you to respond so that we don't, yeah.
Okay, so we'll expect to see that draft, and anyone who has thoughts about it can get back to legal before it comes to us at our next packet. Councilor Bloom.
Yeah, and if we could do that with every ordinance, that'd be fantastic. That's a resolution. Yeah, well, that's
okay, so that, I believe, concludes that particular topic this evening. Thank you, Carmel. Thank you, Johan. We move on now to ordinances, resolutions, and contracts. So we have the approval of a construction and maintenance agreement and reimbursement payment contract with Central Oregon and Pacific Railroad for the North Mountain Avenue Overlay Phase 2 project, PW 2021-03. Sabrina?
I'm not sure I can add anything to that title, so I'm just going to let Scott take over.
I don't know if I can add anything else either. Good evening. So before the council tonight is a request to essentially approve a reimbursement to the Central Oregon and Pacific Railroad for improvements to the North Mountain Crossing as part of the construction and maintenance agreement that's in your packet. CORP owns the track and the right-of-way in that location, and so they kind of control the business end of the process. I had a couple interesting conversations with legal about how to broach this, because this is essentially a sole source kind of procurement, and we just figured a way to come to the council and the transparency's sake to let everyone know that we were going to process payment to CORP to do these track improvements. And so this is what we're requesting the council to do tonight, is to authorize this expenditure to CORP. I will also say that there's some rumors floating out there, and we have not been able to confirm or deny yet that CORP will no longer be using the track section between Ashland and Wairika in the future, and that they have started the process to de-energize the track crossing electricals. And so we are working on confirming that right now. Our project manager, Carl Johnson, is working with Genesee, Wyoming, who kind of manages the business infra corp of all these transactions and things to find out what is exactly going on. And so based on that and moving forward, if council approves this, what we would be looking to do is amend that construction agreement to only cover the hardscape portion of the track improvements. At that location on the west side of Mountain, there is no pedestrian crossing over the track, and we want to create that pedestrian crossing and infill the sidewalk that's missing in that section, and then also do the grade transition paneling, the concrete panels that you see in most improved track sections, to align with our new asphalt grade and storm drain work that we'll be doing in the area. So it could be a modification. I wouldn't expect that we're in that 1.18 million. We're substantially less than that if we did not do the crossing arm, electrical, signage safety improvements that we left the condition as is. And so with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, good to see you, Scott. It's been a while. Hope you had a good break. So I'm curious. So this is kind of basically set up for phase 2, right, of this project.
Yeah, we wanted
Which is
to
in
get
design
this
phase.
portion done to facilitate phase 2, because the track improvements can go in, the crossing improvements can go in, and then we can come in and do the rest of the sidewalk connection to that at-grade crossing. We could do the asphalt transition to that. So that's why we wanted to give CORP the green light to go through their process. So when we get to phase 2 of North Mountain, it's ready to go.
And then follow up, please.
Yes.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, from what I remember, phase 2 goes up to East Main. Is that correct?
Correct. Hershey Street to East Main.
And the timeline for phase 2?
We should have the final design plans completed in the next couple months. So we're either looking at a late fall, early winter bid potentially, kind of the same construction schedule that we're doing right now for the first phase,
Right.
kind of that January to June timeline.
And then, so with that under consideration in this conversation about a facilities master plan and the potential of a civic center that's going there, what is the risk that we do improvements to these roads, and then let's say we do and the voters decide, let's go forward with the civic center that's going to be on Mountain and Main? What is the risk of having to do additional improvements, tearing the street and the sidewalks back up to do changes, because then you've got a new traffic study I would imagine need to be done with new buildings and employees coming in and out and public coming in and out. So I'm just trying to get a sense of, is this a pause moment until we kind of figure that out?
I don't think so. One of the things that we talked about for the civic complex at 90 North Mountain is the circulation pattern internal to the facility. And then also the one thing that part of that traffic study that we would look at comprehensively would be the access from the facility onto North Mountain at that B Street location.
Right.
From a safety standpoint. And we've talked about that. The Transportation Advisory Committee chatted about that a while ago. We've talked about that internally. So it could be potentially of some minor improvements to that location that we could preemptively kind of adjust for, I think, going into phase 2. And if there were anything that had to be done, I would say that they would be pretty minor just from the access standpoint on that location. On the East Main side, I don't have any concerns. It's more of that circulation, truck routing, internal to the facility and how they access either East Main or North Mountain.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to get a sense, because I'm a bit trepidatious when we talk about tearing up roads. I mean, even if they're small improvements, right? I mean, there's risks of main breaks. You've got construction crews in there. Obviously, you've got residents in the area that are going to be upset. Like, we're kind of duplicating efforts, and it just seems to me that it would make sense to pause, figure out everything we want to do in that area, get a sense of that, do it once and do it right the first time, and it also will help cut down on labor costs as well.
And I think based on council direction, when we come back with a facility plan and have that next level of discussion and a path forward, you know, and a focused direction is chosen, then we can look at that and start moving forward in those little pieces, you know, before potentially we bid out phase 2 and maybe account for some of that in that project that would facilitate or support development of the complex at 90.
Councillor Sherrill.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Scott. Can you just, I know it's a rumor, but can you just kind of play that out? Like if they de-energize the tracks and they don't run freight over that section, they're still going to own that 60-foot easement forever, right? They're in the land business.
Yep.
Is there a chance that we spend, I mean, I see a couple different numbers with 5 million budgeted. Is there a chance we spend all this money and then come to find out they really are decommissioning the tracks and we pave over them, or we're doing work that we're going to have to tear out, or we're doing work that we don't need to do, or the ADA transitions are different? Is there any way that by not waiting and just go ahead and doing this because it's budgeted, that we have that we make a mistake and spend money that we don't need to spend?
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're trying to figure out right now is if we don't have to spend the money, we're not going to spend the money. But they, from our understanding too, this is the rumor mill because we haven't been able to corroborate, is that they will still be running a couple times a year to bring de-icer to the ODOT facility. So they would still be using the track sections through town as part of their operations. We have very low risk putting in the pedestrian portion and the concrete rail system through the tracks because those are defined parameters regulatorily that the design drawings and the construction portion will meet from a risk standpoint. What we would have risk on is installing new arms, new striping, new signage, all of that electrical side of everything, and then them truly not moving forward and actually de-energizing. So that's why I said we were having our project manager verify with Genesee, Wyoming, that actually is the track that they're headed on. And then we would request to remove all of that from their construction phase and only do the at-grade crossing improvements.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you. Hi, Scott. So Scott, I'm reading this and I look through it and I see the $5 million. Then I see that OTIB is offering a 15-year loan. And then you also mentioned having the cost of the facilities plan cost. So how much does this look like this will be? We already have the 15 million. Is the city considering a loan for from OTIB?
Yeah, so per the food and beverage municipal code requirement, we're required to obtain debt for these roadway rehabilitation projects. And the Oregon Transportation Infrastructure Bank is one of those mechanisms that will help fund this. I just got word that the local Region 3 approved the design construction plans that we have in place for the project and meets their standards. So that information has been given to OTIB as part of finalizing loan documents for that. So we will put a loan in place supported by the food and beverage tax revenues to support the rehab project and the crossing improvements that are all defined for the North Mountain Rehab Project.
I saw that comes out of the F&B. And then we don't know what the cost will be for the next plan, correct?
It just depends on if there's anything that would be recommended for improvement. And like I said, and my take on it would just be focused on the B Street 90 North Mountain three-way, four-way stop location as far as access, circulation, safety, and looking at what that intersection would need to be or change to potentially to make sure it's safe for all modes crossing that location.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Councillor Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor. Hey, Scott. Good to see you again. The biggest question I had reading this is, are we out of compliance by not having this multimodal, as we call it, all-age friendly crossing?
Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of the policy framework that the council has supported by supporting enhanced bike facilities and pedestrian connections. So not having a complete pedestrian connection is something that we're instituting as part of this project. Not having a protected bike boulevard connection through the strip, which we went through a pretty significant process over the last couple years with the Transportation Advisory Committee, local groups, and the council to define, a bicycle boulevard in this location for safety to support all users, all ages and all abilities to the highest degree we can.
Right, and this is the time to do it when we're working on North Main.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, just to clarify, we're not necessarily out of compliance with the law, just our own internal policy, which could change, one. And two, we could technically pause the entire North Mountain project until we figured out what we wanted to do, again, in those affected areas, correct?
The phase 2 you could, because we haven't got to that point where we're asking for an award or anything like that. Phase 1 has already been awarded to Carter and Company and actually is started. Which is the section from Hersey Street to the interstate.
And so if this body were to decide, hey, let's put a pause on this until we really come up with a full plan, have the full picture, that we would not be violating any law. No. We would not be, it would not be an issue. We're not losing money. We're not already in phase 2 and then going backwards. If ever there was a time, right, to say, let's pause until we have the full picture, this would probably be the time, correct?
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. It is a time to pause from a policy standpoint, or from the infrastructure standpoint. I wouldn't agree with that. I think that we would still essentially move forward with the track improvements, and that doesn't change the ramifications to the circulation like I was talking about 490 North Mountain. That just improves accessibility in that location. Outside of that envelope for phase 2, potentially you would look at, like I said, some sort of potential change. And if the council so chooses to head in that direction, we would preemptively try to start that analysis to see what those impacts could be that would affect the design plans for that phase 2.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Councillor Kaplan.
Yeah, I guess, so thanks for chasing down that information about the railroad. I guess we didn't, I was hoping we'd get a little bit more hard and fast information. It seems like, when I was looking around for it seemed to be pretty firm. But, I don't know, I'd like to hear it from the horse's mouth as well. I guess you feel pretty confident. I hear you say that you're confident that if we approve this tonight, we would amend it because we'd be negotiating with CORP to get a reduced specs. The specs that you're currently discussing, do involve some signaling infrastructure, electrified infrastructure. So we would want to take those out if that's possible, which I would hope would be possible if there's no trains going through and you don't have to signal for it. You feel pretty confident that we could do that, and that's the course of action that you recommend. Is that right?
That's correct, and we have the fail-safe that's in the contract that we can just terminate all activities as well. So if CORP does not agree, then we can also just terminate that contract and that obligation with them and maybe begin a new negotiation or process with them as part of the overall.
Because the structure of the contract is a first disbursement on the contract would be on, what sort of time frame are we talking about?
So we're waiting to hear back from them on their schedule. We haven't got their schedule yet. And so until we know the schedule and when they would be paying and when they would request disbursement is still a little bit up in the air.
And they haven't gone out to bid yet?
They have bid it.
Oh, they have bid
already. So they do, that number is based on an actual bid. So early on in the stage, they provide you an estimate. So you understand your range of impact from the dollar standpoint. And then when they actually go out and bid, they give you that final hard number that's an actual bid.
So why wouldn't we just wait and approve this once we know exactly what the work is going to be? If that's going to be, weeks or months from now. I think that seems more prudent to me than waiting years to sort out what's going to happen with, a consolidated campus which could take, we talked about a 5-10 year process the other day. But this doesn't seem to me like it's something that should take that long, and it's in everybody's interest to go ahead and get it done.
So the risk to not doing anything right now is basically they have a bid to a contractor with a time associated with that. So we would have to have them cancel, and then there's risk with potentially rebidding and cost changes that could happen as part of that overall process.
Can we approve subject to the outcome of the negotiations of reduced scope? Because we're talking about the possibility of there being reduced scope. They've bid for something that may not be entirely necessary based on not confirmed information, but pretty.
And typically what we do on a contractual level, like if the council as the local contract review board approves the full amount of the contract, there's oftentimes behind the scenes where staff cuts things. So we ask you to approve the maximum amount that we expect, but then behind the scenes, there's negotiations and we cut scope. This happened on Ashland Street where we cut scope out of that project and saved about $250,000 from the initial bid, which staff does with the contractor and the engineer as part of that.
And I feel super comfortable with that. What gives me a little bit of pause is that we don't have a relationship with the contractor. It's, this third party that, really basically we're signing a contract to reimburse them for expenses that they've gone out and bid and they're going to do it. So it feels to me a little bit different actually feels quite a bit different than when you guys are in control of the process.
It is quite a bit different, and that's one of our conundrums that we had about bringing this to council and how do we format this discussion, because they are the proprietors and owners of it, and they do it their way, and we're kind of obligated to follow how they do it.
Councilor Duquesne?
Thank you. Actually, a lot of my questions have been answered via Councilor Kaplan, but something you said is a fail-safe, and when I was reading through this agreement, it seems like it's pretty tight. And moving forward, if this was to pass tonight, and then the rumors out there about what's happening with the railroad, it just seems a little uncertain. And I think that, from your standpoint, you said infrastructure makes sense to go ahead and do it now, contracting. But reading their agreement, and I know that it said that the city is recognized as the agency, and I'm looking at all of this, what we will pay for, and then to back out of it when we're halfway through or mid this process, it just doesn't feel comfortable. I think that, so I was going to ask about a sense of urgency, and then you said the bid is out there, so that is your sense of urgency?
Yeah, and like I said, to preemptively do this work before the next phase of work for Mountain occurs in winter of next year, essentially. So it prepares it for those work activities.
I think that it's a big decision of quite a bit of money to take on because the bid is out there. It just doesn't feel right. Go ahead, Councilor.
Councilor Sherrill?
Thank you, Mayor. The timeline. So do we have, I understand the haste to try to get the contractors locked in and get them their first payment. What is the bid? How long is the bid good for? How much time do we have? There's a set date that comes in writing, correct?
Yeah, usually, and they specify that. And I don't know what their set date is because we don't have access to their contract documents or how they bid it as part of this. Typically, ours are about 60 days from the opening to award. We put in our contract documents. That gives us time to do any sort of negotiation and any sort of council approval process as part of that to allow that before we issue them, a notice to proceed for their contract schedule.
Okay, but we don't know the exact date of how much time.
No,
You're
we
guessing
don't
we've
know.
got a couple months.
Somewhere in that generally accepted practice is 60 to 90 days.
And how long have we had it? Like, when did that clock start?
I believe in December.
Okay, so in theory, we could still stay on your track and push this out a meeting or two and still be able to say yes and not lose the pricing and the people that we already have in place. Is that correct?
I would say yes, probably.
Okay, would that be a delay to you and your team and all the work that you and Carl have done to get this ready?
It's not a delay to the city side. It's a delay to the CORP side of things and their process.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor Hansen?
Yeah, this is all really interesting. So I understand our internal policies, why we're aiming to do this. I also understand North Mountain is under construction, so that's the time to do it. The part that I don't understand is when we're able to back out and cancel. If we hear something that's confirmed or construction details are such that we don't agree and we don't want to go through with this, when can you actually like back out? And you know, you don't need permission from us to back out, but when would that be happening behind the scenes?
So in the termination clause, all we have to do is provide formal written notice to the entity, and we can do that at any time. Behind the scenes, what I would say is if CORP comes back and said, no, we're doing the full 1.18 million and we're doing improvements that are no longer warranted, if they come back and say that, I would say we would terminate from the staff side the agreement and go back to the drawing board.
Right then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as I said, there's no point to do those additional improvements that don't support the system. They don't support the transportation mode of rail, and they don't benefit the city from a cost standpoint. I would rather take that remaining money and do additional bike and ped facilities where we could, or, you know, maybe that's some of the seed money that goes into, you know, traffic analysis for circulation for the complex, if that's the direction the council so chooses.
So it sounds like in the process, within the next 60 days or so, you would know that information and be able to move forward and or get out.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, as long as the railroad responds to our inquiries, and they run on their own time frame.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I also understand cost overruns and scheduling and all of that too.
Yeah.
Councilor Blue.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because, I mean, I'm looking at this from a financial standpoint, is how much can we, you know, save and not spend unnecessarily? And my concern is that we go forward and let's say CORP says, yeah, no, we want the full, let's do the full, we do the full, and then they change their mind. Or maybe they're thinking, let's get the full, let's get these improvements on, because maybe we are going to, you know, not run train through there, but we have a plan maybe in 10 years to do so, and let's get the city to pay for this now. Like, I'm trying to, these are my concerns, and without fully knowing or some kind of verbal commitment from them, it's just, I'm a little hesitant to kind of dive in here. It just seems a little foolhardy from my
And the
perspective.
city would have to pay for those improvements in 10 years as part of that. So, you know, if they come back and we don't do them, at that point, we would be doing them as part of a process through kind of a similar agreement. That's your other side of the coin in that issue is, you know, and we actually did talk about that internally. Maybe there's an amendment to this that goes, if at such time in the future, the rail begins operating again, you know, the city will do the remainder of the improvements or participate in reimbursement for the remainder of the improvements.
And would that be in this contract here? Or?
Basically, we'd have to do some sort of amendment paperwork process with them that would outline that.
So we'd pass this contract and then you would do an amendment, and would that amendment come back to us?
No, I don't think so, because it would be a cost reduction and not a cost increase from a change order basis.
But we would still be approving a contract that isn't actually going to be maybe a final contract.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. You're not approving a contract. You're approving staff to reimburse them. And that's where we really struggle, because you have no control as a policy body over the contract process and requirements established by CORP. We're only approving the reimbursement based on budget appropriations that have gone through already.
Yeah, and to be totally honest, that's what Scott and I went back and forth quite a bit in December, was trying to figure out, is this a council decision or not? Because really it's not a policy question, and it's just a matter of like, are we doing this that we're almost obligated to do anyway? It was more we discussed as like, well, this is a big dollar figure and there's a transparency thing, and then we weren't entirely sure where it felt, and so it seemed like a good idea to bring it forward. Let you guys know what's going on. But
And in our kind of back research, this same exact situation happened on Hershey Street years ago, and we think what happened is it was just referenced in a council communication that this was happening while the council approved the rehabilitation of Hershey Street. So it wasn't kind of a formal action, but we thought the only way to move this forward was through some sort of formal action.
Any remaining questions of staff? Okay. The floor is open for a motion. Councillor Hanson?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm happy to make the motion. I move to reimburse payment contract with Central Oregon and Pacific Railroad for the North Mountain Overlay Project for a contract amount not to exceed 1,185,843 that is based on the current construction and maintenance agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, we just had a very robust discussion, and I'm doing this out of good faith with staff here because I think that I understand the process well enough that staff is going to manage this contract amount with Central Oregon Pacific, and should it get reduced, they will be proactive and make that happen. Should it fall through, or should staff change their mind, they have the authority to make those changes. I understand that North Mountain is under construction with a lot of different moving parts, so I think this gives us the best flexibility, and I hope that we're going to do something that represents our goals as a community here in this transportation infrastructure improvement. And that one particular section is just a small part of what we're doing with this, huge upgrade to North Mountain, but it's essential. I think it's important for the neighbors, for safety, and just to help complete the transportation system network.
Councillor Sherrill?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, everything that Councillor Hanson said, and I trust that you'll be a good steward of this money, and I think it's important. I've been fielding a lot of calls lately about maintenance and why don't we have maintenance funds and why are our facilities falling apart. It's because when we budget money, we got to spend it, and this is just a good example of that in streets. We have it in the budget. We need to maintain our infrastructure. We need to maintain our city. And I'm going to support this.
Councillor Kaplan?
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to support this too. I appreciate the work that you guys have done, Scott. I think this crossing is not in question. This is absolutely critical to do, regardless of timing of the rest of the phase two, the paving that councilors were discussing, up to between Hersey and East Main. I'm looking at the cancellation clause. It's pretty clear that staff has the opportunity to cancel if there's any kind of doubt about the need to do all of the work. But I'm expecting that you're going to be able to get some answers from CORP, and you're going to scope this to the appropriate degree. So I will be supporting it.
Councillor Bloom?
Yeah, I certainly have, this isn't about confidence in your ability to pull back or anything like that. I mean, this is for me kind of a becoming a larger issue. I think that, right now, given the situation that we are economically and the budget, and that we have these big plans about facilities, and we have a strategic plan coming up, there's a lot of moving parts. And I think that I am all about maintenance and doing improvements to our roads, but that is, so that the traffic is good, make sure we don't have giant potholes. But the idea is, a lot of the work that's being done on this North Mountain project is for, protected bike lanes, which is great. But should we really be investing that money right now so critically when we might have potential need for that elsewhere in other main veins of the city, like Ashland Street, Siskiyou, and East Main itself? So I will not be supporting this, and I think that we should be pausing phase two altogether.
Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. I'd like to underline what Councillor Bloom just brought up. It's a lot of money to put towards this one project. I too am about infrastructure, safety, streets. I agree with that. However, putting forth all this money and still there's uncertainty about more money to come behind that, now I can't support this. But thank you for your work on it.
Councillor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, a lot of questions were answered. I appreciate that. I appreciate the work. A lot of questions, though, are still unanswered. I think there's just too many right now for me to really understand what exactly that amount is. I appreciate the work, but I need more information before I can support it.
And so I would just add that one of the reasons that we have the capital improvement plan and that we lay out these projects is so that they can move forward in a consistent, steady pace. And I recall that when we had the pandemic and we had to stop roadway projects, we suddenly had a massive glut on the other side. And because we delayed so many, we suddenly had a whole lot more that our staff had to move through and try to catch up on. I see out ahead of us a lot of facilities work, a lot of road work that is in as good of a plan as we can make it at the moment, but will be a more refined plan once we go through our facilities and strategic planning processes. But I would be, knowing that we've got, that this is timed to coincide with the rest of this project, and knowing that this particular road needs its full rehabilitation all the way to East Main Street, I think it makes sense to me to move forward with this. And I fully understand that there are some elements that are not completely predicted at the moment because of some of the changes that may be afoot with the railroad. But I also am confident that this structure that we have here allows our staff to be flexible in the event that that scope changes. If there is no further discussion, roll call please, Alyssa.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Dale,
No.
Bloom,
No.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Duquesne,
No.
Hanson.
Yes.
Mayor Graham.
Yes. Thank you, Scott. We move on now, and just so everybody knows, I know we've been here for a bit. We're going to take a break as soon as we get through this next section, but we are here for second reading of Ordinance 3275, amending AMC 10.68, public parks to include provision for special use permitted activity.
So before you, as a reminder, this passed through council on December 16th with no changes, but this ordinance cleanup allows for more activity under a special use permit within our parks. So this is a way to benefit the community by allowing event organizers more flexibility. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any additional questions? We also have Parks and Recreation staff here as well, if there are any detailed questions. Okay, if there are no questions, then the floor is open for a motion. Councilor Hanson?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm happy to make this motion as well. I move to approve second reading of AMC Ordinance 3275, an ordinance relating to public parks to include provision for special use permitted activity, repealing and replacing AMC Chapter 10.68.
Is there a second? Councilor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you for that preface. This is second reading. We didn't have any changes in first reading, and I've been able to experience firsthand what some of these changes have done to elevate the livability in our parks for our citizenry. And I look at those epic concerts that we had last summer with food and beverage from the food trucks, just as one example. And I look forward to seeing how we can take this policy to the next level in the summer of 26. So happy to support it. Thank you.
And Councilor Bloom? Who had the second? Councilor Kaplan? Okay, Councilor Bloom.
Yeah, no, I appreciate coming forward with this, Acting Director Dials, sorry. Yeah, I really appreciate that this goes straight into the hands of the Parks Director as it should, and just kind of skip that other process. So I will support this.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Mayor, if we could, I would like to release Scott back into the wild. Could we pull and do the consent agenda item that was pulled before we take a recess?
Sure. let's go ahead and handle that one as well. Councilor Duquesne, you had a question, a clarifying question about that? So it's for those watching from home, we are picking up the consent agenda item number 2, the Jackson County jurisdictional transfer of roadways. Councilor Duquesne?
Thank you, and great suggestion, City Manager, because Scott, when you left, I thought now you have to sit here for another hour. My question was actually around clarity. Just to be clear, when I look at under background and additional information, and it talks about East Main Street Park Development, City of Ashland project, and it talks about the section between East Main and Clay Street at that intersection to Tolman. So tell me, for clarity, does that mean that, what does that mean? Will traffic slow down? Will we be able to have access to open East Main Park when it does open on the East Main side and not Abbott? Can you give me some clarity?
So the annexation for the East Main Street Park property and that process was essentially contingent on taking jurisdictional ownership of the frontage along that property, as Jackson County, under their TSP and their access standards, do not allow access off a major road when there's access off a minor road. And the East Main Street Park takes access off of East Main as the major road. And so that was one of the requirements of Jackson County as part of this annexation process, is to allow that. As far as any sort of speed reductions or changes, those things are controlled by the state. And so we would have to request a speed zoning study be performed in that area. And I would not request that until the actual physical frontage improvements are in place and there's some sort of environmental change, and people start using that park and that parking lot. We could look at it at that point and request the state look at the speed zoning along that section. There's a pretty quick transition down to 45 and down to 25 in that area. So I definitely think that that would be appropriate to look at that.
So just to be clear, that this would allow for the opening to be at East Main?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions of staff? The floor is open for a motion. Councilor Kaplan.
Yes, I move to approve resolution number 2026-01, a resolution requesting surrender by Jackson County to the City of Ashland all right, title, interest, jurisdiction, maintenance, and control of all subject exchange road sections to the city.
Is there a second?
Second. Oh.
Councilor Kaplan?
No, I think we've discussed why this makes sense. I appreciate the process that's involved in getting this to happen. Thank you.
Councilor Duquesne?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Dale?
Yes.
Sherrill?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Duquesne?
Yes.
Kaplan?
Yes.
Blue?
Yes.
We will take a 5-minute recess.
I got a 0-1 resolution.
We will take a 5-minute recess by this clock to my right. So please be back in your seats at 8:25. All right, we are now to the next sections of new business. We have the council liaison appointments. Councilors, thank you for getting back to me about your desired placements and assignments this year. We have there are a couple of additions to what was put in the packet, and that is that we just failed to write down the 2200 ad hoc committee, and right now the representatives to that committee are me, Councillor Duquesne, and Councillor Bloom. So that's been added to the version that we have here. And then also, I would like to add Councillor Bloom back to the Child Care Ad Hoc Committee, along with Councillor Duquesne. And my hope is that we can help that committee get to whatever level of resolution they need to get to, given that it's an ad hoc committee and not a consistent element of our committee process at the moment. So are there any questions about the assignments? Okay. Councillor Duquesne, oh, sorry, I thought you had your hands up. Okay, so if there are no questions, the floor is open for a motion. Councillor Bloom?
Yeah, I move to approve the council liaison appointments as discussed.
Okay, Councillor Bloom?
No.
Councillor Kaplan? Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Motion pass.
Great, thank you. And now we move on to the chair of the city council election. And what we will start with is any nominations for the council chair position. Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, I nominate Councillor Dale for the council chair position.
Okay. Councillor Dale, do you accept the nomination?
I do, thank you.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, the floor is open for a motion to confirm the chair. Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, I move to confirm Jeff Dale as chair of the council for 1 year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Councillor Bloom?
Everybody jumped at that one. No other comment.
Councillor Duquesne?
No.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Does Dale? No, okay.
Yeah, if I may, if you don't mind, Alyssa.
You want to vote for
Sorry,
yourself?
I'm going up and, no. Discussion. I just wanted to say thank you, a sincere thank you to this council, my colleagues. It's been a learning experience and very enjoyable as council chair in 2025, and working with such good people and people that are wanting to do such phenomenal work here, and to Mayor Graham for her leadership. We had a really productive 2025, and just look forward to another year, and just my gratitude to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I apologize, I didn't see you up on the Zoom with your Zoom hand up. Okay, if there is no further discussion, then roll call, please, Alyssa.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Bloom.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. And now we are to ratification of the 3-year labor agreement with IAFF Local 1269.
No, you're not in a bad dream. You have done this before. We had some clerical errors we needed to fix in agreement with IAFF, and to have everything on the up and up. We are coming back tonight with those edits that are clerical in nature to ask you to re-ratify with an official vote from council so that we have a good, sound process. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for staff? Okay, the floor is open for a motion. Councillor Kaplan?
I move to approve the 3-year labor agreement with IAFF Local 1269 and authorize the city manager to sign the 3-year agreement.
Second.
Counselor Kaplan?
Was that you? No, I think we've just signed, we've approved it before, so.
Counselor Sherrill?
No, thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Duquesne,
No.
Hanson.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, and now we are to the city manager report section. So we'll take a look at the look ahead first.
Okay. So reminder, tomorrow I will see you all at the high school for our town hall. No. Okay, well, Counselor Bloom is too good for us. He has to go learn. That's fine. We'll release you from that. But we're looking forward to seeing you all there. We do have a joint study session coming up with the Planning Commission on January 27th. So that agenda will be coming out. February 2nd, we are going to have a discussion about some proposed kind of administrative charter changes that would be helpful for us, for council to deliberate on there. And then February 16th, we don't have a study session as a reminder because it's President's Day. So city offices will be closed. February 3rd, we will have, the executive director of OSF coming by to give us an update on OSF and how they're doing. We will be back for a second attempt at a first reading for the real property ordinance that we discussed tonight. I'm sure we will have more going on as I meet with department heads tomorrow on the agenda. February 11th, we will have a joint APRC council meeting. So we'll be getting with Acting Director Dials. We'll get with the mayor and Chair Bachman to get our agenda set for that. That will include our quarterly financial report from Acting Finance Director Morrison. So that is one thing that is set. And then we are working to get the electric rates on the agenda with the consultants with the final product for that. And that gets us pretty much through the middle of February.
Great. And also now the January city managers report. Oh, did you have a question about the look ahead?
Yes.
Okay.
Just something I caught. I'm almost 100% actually positive that there's a error. Ordinance updates approved by council work group on. I'm an idiot. I thought the code was 1.8.25 and I was going to say it doesn't exist. You're talking about the date that we met. I'm an idiot. Ignore me. Sorry.
As this is a living document, we're always happy if you will point out things we've missed. But yeah, that is the date.
Councilor Hanson.
Thank you. I realize the agenda isn't out, but you probably know this. January 27th, the joint study session. Is that here in council chambers or? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right, city manager's report. So as a reminder, our social service grant program and affordable housing trust fund RFPs are live. We'll be accepting proposals through February 20th. So if you're thinking of applying, please get those in. Our free home energy scores are now available through May of this year. So you can find more information about that on our website. One thing I did want to highlight, so we implemented our C-Click Fix program. If you remember, we had a discussion about this tool. So this is an app or through our website where residents can go in and report issues such as water leaks, potholes, etc. We have had a really great uptake of this new technology within our community. And so we are getting a lot of things resolved because of that. So our citizens are looking for ways that they would like to see improved. And since we can't be everywhere at all times, this has been really helpful for city staff to get things done. So thank you to our citizens. Yeah. Oh.
Councilor Bloom?
I think there might even be a Facebook group where they meet up and they rove around the city and just
Really?
pick at every little thing.
Great.
I might have joined. No.
Yeah, I've used it when I've seen a deceased deer in the street. So I think it's really helpful because sometimes you see something and you're like, oh, I'll report that. And then your day moves on and you never get to it. And then until we happen to go by it, city staff, we don't see it. And so I've been very pleased. It was a big lift to get this off the ground and change our processes internally and get staff buy-in. And staff has been wonderful in making this happen, so I appreciate that. And then a reminder, If I Were Mayor contest is open for Ashland students grade 4 through 12, so check that out online. That's always a fun celebration for us here in council chambers, so looking forward to that. And I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any updates from council members' reports from your liaison assignments? Okay. We've had a little bit of a break. All right, the floor is open for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.